Hello, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time joining me, welcome. I am so glad that you're here. I'm presenting a three-part series on being scam savvy, and I'm really excited about it. I'm so thrilled that you're here because having more awareness about these scams is really the first part to protecting yourself from being a victim. Now, I just want to let you know people are getting scammed left and right these days. And I myself even got scammed a couple of years ago. Sometimes I want to believe in miracles, right? And I want to believe I won something and I want to believe I'm getting a good deal. And then I quickly realized I'm being scammed. So I want to bring more awareness and more attention to this ever-present topic. And so today we're going to talk about part one of this three-part series. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. And while I do that, I want to introduce myself. My name is Abby Ritchie, and I am the founder of Senior Savvy. First, guys, well done on showing up here today. I love being in the presence of lifelong learners, and that is what you all are. And I'm so grateful and honored to be with you. Now, if this is your first time joining me, I am the founder of Senior Savvy. I'm a TV host, I have a show on every Tuesday. It's called Tech Tuesday. I'm also a TEDx speaker. Yeah, bit of a humble brag there. And I've created several courses over the past 5 years, courses that will help you be more secure online. Now, if you do have any questions whatsoever, I want to let you know you can always email me. My email address is at the bottom of every single slide. And again, it's right here. If you have a question, please feel free to reach out and email me. Today, we're going to cover these topics. Now, again, this is part one of three. So part one of three is on building your awareness. We're going to talk about unmasking the modern scam, different types of common online scams, decoding the scammer's tactics, guarding your data castle. That sounds a little more fun than it is, right? And putting together your first line of defense. Now, let's talk about recognizing some of the latest online threats. Because if you can understand how scammers exploit your vulnerabilities, then you're one step closer to being aware that they're out there. So first, let's go ahead and have a brief history of digital fraud. I know so many of you love the historicity of my subject, so I do like to talk about that. And the rise of the internet has brought about so many positive changes to our lives, from instant communication to global access to information. However, with every technological advancement comes a new set of challenges. And one of the biggest challenges we face in the digital age is the prevalence of online scams and fraud. Yeah, there you go. So they started in the early 2000s, and I'm going to show you some examples on the next couple of pages. And in the early 2000s, phishing scams, which are phishing and trying to extract information from you, became to emerge as a popular way for scammers to steal your personal information. These scams involve sending emails that appear to be legitimate and asking the recipient to click on a link and provide their personal information. They still remain a common way for scammers to extract your information. Here's an early example of a phishing scam in email. You will find that the text is often unpolished. And in this case, they're just saying, "Dear user account." That doesn't say it's going to you directly, does it? Another thing that you'll find is they will say, click send, our team of webmail upgrade your account. You will always find typos, always. It's one of the telltale signs of a phishing email. So you want to read carefully and not overlook it as, oh, it might have been a typo. No, it was a typo because a non-native speaker has written this or someone has written this very quickly. And then it typically will contain, just say like it's from the computer help desk. It doesn't say it's from anyone in particular. Here's another example of an early scam. And so this one was going to Hotmail and Outlook users. On first glance, looks relatively legit, doesn't it? But when you look a little bit closer, you'll see that the typos are in there. You'll see that there's a link to click on for more information. You'll see there's the generic way that they've signed the email, the Microsoft account team. Now, email phishing became really widespread in 2023. In fact, it was the second most frequent cause of data breaches, compromising 16% of instances and occurring with the average breach costing $4.91 million. So approximately half of phishing email attachments are in the form of a Microsoft document, and approximately 1.2% of all sent emails are malicious. That's a lot, equating to a staggering daily volume of 3.4 billion. So now we've discussed some of the early scams. Let's talk a little bit more into mid 2000s. Social media became more and more popular. Then there were like friend scams on Facebook, and these are all in an attempt to extract information from you. Here's a good example of that type of friend email. And what they'll do is you'll get something and it will look legitimate. It will always say enter your phone number, enter your email address. It's just one way that they're extracting more information from you. So when something is requesting personal information, then your alarm bell should go off. Red flag should start spinning in your head. In the later 2000s, the mobile scams became rather prevalent. And what happened is that we started receiving scams like this one from the post office or per se, or from the bank, or appearing to be. And we would click on it. It came to our phone. We thought it was for us personally. And of course, if it came from the bank, it would put us on high alert, right? But these are examples of scams that are coming into your phone, all right? A little bit about cyber fraud evolution. Because as technology has evolved, so has digital fraud. And today, scammers are increasingly sophisticated and they've learned tactics to steal money and personal information from their victims. I don't want you to be a victim. So one of the very first and earliest digital scams was called the Nigerian Prince scam. You probably have heard about it, but this scam typically involves an email from someone claiming to be a member of a wealthy Nigerian family who needs help transferring money out of the country. Ding, 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 ding. Do you hear it? I do. In exchange for your assistance, they promise to reward you with a large sum of money. Ding, 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 ding. Sounds too good to be true. It is, okay? They typically are pulling on your heartstrings, all right? And you want to be aware of that. Here's another one. Oh my gosh, I see this all the time working one-on-one with my students. It's the tech support scam. I'll have a client call me and say, I don't know how this happened, but I got a pop-up on my computer that says I better call this number right away. Otherwise, they're going to infect my computer with a virus or malware. Ding, 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 ding. That's when the alarm should go off in your mind because this is a tech support scam. And what happens is they're going to make you pay in order to make this alert go away. But when they make you pay, what they do is they get your bank account information or your credit card information. And then even then, they're going to deposit malware on your account. I want you to stop, drop, and roll anytime you see this and go ahead and unplug your computer from the wall and call me, okay? All right, there's also an uptick in crypto scams. And this scam involves infecting a victim's computer with malware that uses the computer's processing power to mine cryptocurrencies, blah, 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 right? And I don't even want to pretend we all know exactly what that means. But the thing is that this is an insidious way of them getting information from you and also you paying for it. Now let's go ahead and try to decode some of the scammers' tactics, because if you can do a deep dive into the psychology behind the scammers' tactics, you're one step closer to being safe. And that's what I want you to be. So the first tactic is manipulation and deception. So at the heart of most scams is manipulation. This is a psychological tactic utilized by scammers to exploit the vulnerability of their victims. And the people I work with, they're pretty vulnerable. They're trusting, they're loving. And I don't want this to happen to you. The manipulator may create a sense of urgency, as they often do. Click now or you'll lose all your emails. Send this in today, or we'll expose your account information. And they will also appeal to your empathy, and they'll promise unrealistically high returns. Now, I want to mention that, just talk about that unrealistically high returns for a minute, because I did have a client who got scam based on an unrealistic high returns. He was very, very into investing. And there was such a high return that he just felt like, I better take advantage of it. But it was a scam. It was too good to be true. And that's something I want you to be on the alert for. Next, the risk reward calculation. So scammers, like everyone else, they make choices based on risk reward calculations. The risk of being caught for cybercrime is generally lower than the traditional forms of crime. That's right. It's generally lower because they can't be traced. It's crazy. So the combination of high rewards and low risk makes the cyber scams an attractive proposal and prospect for criminals. And you got to remember that. Okay. So what else? They will often exploit trusting relationships. So they'll send you a text, they'll send you an email, they'll capitalize on these powerful influences, and scammers can manipulate you to carry out their deceptive activities. So if you got something from Netflix, for instance, and it appeared on site to be from Netflix, I really want you to hover your cursor, your mouse, over the email address and tell me right then and there, who's it really from? All right. Next up, they're always going to use a sense of urgency and scarcity. So they will often create a perceived urgency to pressure you into making decisions without thoroughly evaluating the situation. Sound familiar? Click here, access immediately, select this, call us here. These are all using urgency and scarcity. They'll even evoke primal drives. Now, no, that sounds kind of kooky, but it's so true. These primal drives can have a profound impact on human behavior, often overriding rational thinking and causing people to focus solely on fulfilling the needs associated with the drives. So typically this happens in two ways. We've got romance scams and money scams. There are also impersonation scams that try to convince and create authentic looking correspondence that closely mimics legitimate services and organizations, like the Netflix example again, right? And by doing so, they are exploiting your inclination to trust and rely on familiar and credible sources. They're so sneaky. Grr. And they will also use fictitious testimonials. So scammers may create fictitious testimonials or positive reviews to highlight satisfied customers or beneficiaries of their scheme. Now let's move into the next section and talk about different and common types of online scams. The first one, and we mentioned this is phishing and smishing. Yes, those are two words, they're in the dictionary. I didn't just make them up. Smishing is a text message you get to your phone. Phishing is an email address to your inbox. Both of them are extracting, they're fishing for your information. And they will try to do whatever they can. In fact, in 2021, around 83% of people will open a new window of, or I'm sorry, 83% of people will say that they have clicked on a bad link, downloaded malware, and provided credentials or executed a wire transfer. I don't want you to do that. Okay. I want you to be aware. And these are all the signs of a phishing attack. Next, we have vishing. Yes, vishing. Vishing is a type of voice-based phishing where scammers contact you using your phone. It might be your voicemail. You may think you got a voicemail from Apple, but it's not really Apple. In fact, Apple doesn't call you ever, okay? Unless you've called them and asked them for a call back. They could be calling from a tech support company or from the bank. The primary goal of phishing is to obtain sensitive information from you. The business email correspondence still happens today. It's a highly targeted phishing attack that's usually executed through the impersonation of a senior executive. Attackers hack or they spoof email accounts. So it may look like it's from the president of an organization, but it's really just a public email address like a Gmail. And a lot of these happens. In fact, this is one of the old costliest forms of cybercrime that's netted 43 billion to cyber criminals in the past year. I don't want you to be attributing to that amount. There's also a lot of romance scams, and I want you to be on the lookout for this. We all want to have a little love in our life, right? And typically, what happens is the victim starts to trust the attacker, and they may say that they need some investment advice or that they're in need of emergency or something like that. Be on the lookout. There's also something called watering hole attacks. I had never heard of this. However, this came up in my research. And what this entails is cyber criminals will sometimes target well-known websites and mobile applications commonly visited by the victim or people associated with the target, like Facebook, for instance. And so it's sort of like there's like these group of people in this Facebook group that can be targeted, and that's a watering hole attack. I hate talking about this, but it's so necessary. It makes me so angry. And like if you see me with my shoulders up here looking tense as ever, that's because this happens to so many of my students and it makes me mad. All right, next, let's get into the good stuff. Let's talk about the first line of defense, awareness. All right. So first of all, stay informed. And I got to point you to the AARP Fraud Watch Network. Why? Because this is one of the places I will always go if I need to research if a certain scam is happening. Okay, so here you'll be able to educate yourself about common scam tactics, emerging fraud schemes, and any evolving technologies used by scammers. There's the link down there. I've got a red arrow pointing to it. Go ahead and click on it and or go to the AARP website. Next, you got to maintain skepticism. You really, really do. So approach any unexpected or unsolicited offers with caution. Ding, 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 ding. Question the legitimacy of the claims or the promises that seem too good to be true. Because if they are, they probably are a scam. All right. Check the end of the URL. Make sure there are characters there. I've seen a scam email from ABC, for instance, abc.com. That's where you would go online for the television station, but it might say ABC TV1.com, and that could be very confusing. Scrutinize all your emails. And this is something I always teach in my classes. I always teach my students not to just see the email and think it's from Amazon, but hover your mouse over where the email address is, and then extra information will drop down, and you can tell exactly who it is from. And anytime you can use the multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication, I want you to, because it's adding an extra layer of security to everything you're doing. Now, if you ever need help with that, and I know a lot of my students hate it because it usually means you've got to go from one screen to another screen and then back to the screen and you get lost and you don't know where you were. I can help you with that. We can train you through that. We can teach you what to do in those situations. Okay. Now, I've talked a lot about red flags, ding, 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 and there's always a sense of urgency, right? There's always an illegitimate or an unfamiliar address. There's typically a very generic greeting. There will always be spelling and grammar errors and suspicious links, as well as an unexpected attachment. Now, if you have your phone there, and I know you do right by your side, I want you to go ahead, take a picture of this, all right? Because this will be with you always. And you can reflect back to this screen right here, right now, and make sure that you have all the red flags in mind. Another thing too is simply to trust your instincts. So if you have a weird gut feeling that someone is or isn't, and it's just a little bit too good to be true, you're not exactly sure, pass, all right? Additionally, one thing that I always do is I verify credibility independently. So if someone is saying that they're giving me an offer, and maybe it's Netflix, maybe it's American Express, I will go onto a Google search and I will type in what are the 2023 Netflix scams. And then I want to see what those scams look like. I want to look at these images and see, is this similar to the one that I got? And that will help you debunk something right away. And you know what, guys? Just don't answer the phone, okay? Just don't answer the phone. You do not need to answer every phone call. Someone will leave a message if it is that important. I never answer my phone if I don't recognize the caller. That's just me. Okay, our next class is going to be about avoidance, avoiding online scams, avoiding points of entry, and how scammers are using email and the phone to trick you, which I do not want to happen. So I had a couple of questions here. I wanted to answer them for you. What if you're not sure? Okay, if you're not sure that it is or is not a scam, a couple of things that you can do that I mentioned here. The AARP has a fraud watch network that is wonderful. They're going to list all of the recent upcoming frauds. The other thing that you can do is you can do that Google search and you can type in what are the 2023, and I like to say 2023 because you want the current one. What are the current American Express scams, for instance, and see what comes up. Finally, you can always reach out to us. We're here to help you, okay? Next, should you report them? Absolutely. And actually, in one of our upcoming classes, we're going to talk about where to go to report these scams. But the best place you can go is fraudreport.ftc.gov. Fraudreport.ftc.gov. All right. And that actually brings us to the end. Now, I do have a handout on some of these websites that I can email you, but you got to email me first and ask for it. Ask for the part one handout. Okay. And there's my email address right down there. Make sure you do the .net and place your request today. We are at the end, and I just want to say well done. But you can always find me on Facebook. Please say hello to me there and on LinkedIn if you're the business type, as well as on Instagram and good old YouTube. Hey guys, it has been an honor and a pleasure to serve you today and educate you. I'll see you back here again next time.